Hello, everybody. 大家好，区块链的同志们好，我是欧阳墨，世木资本的创始人。Welcome, everybody. My name is Omar Osden. I'm the founder and chairman of RockTree Capital, and I welcome everybody here today to this edition of RockTree OG Talks series. And today we have a very special end of the year RockTree OG Talks episode where we bring the smartest minds in crypto from all over the world to deliver the cutting edge thoughts. We learned our investment method from GenFund, Jenga, Jijin, to really focus on top founders for their performance, their integrity, their ability to execute their projects. And I'm very happy to bring three excellent leaders in crypto infrastructure here today. We will be talking to them, and we have invested in all three of these projects. And I will be discussing RockTree's investment thesis, how we look at these three projects in the infrastructure space, where we think they're going, and that we see these projects, we believe, will have a geometric growth in the upcoming bull run. I just want to remind everybody, we are not giving investment advice. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're just talking about how RockTree looks at these and all of these three projects we've already invested into. So 4 years ago, in 2020, RockTree also invested into the Graph, which is a middleware investment, GRT. You can see on the left of the slide, we were in the private sale, and eventually there were other private sales and a public sale, which was approximately 300 million. And you can see what happened to the project in 2020, later in 2020, 2021, 2022. This is the comp that we see for Covalent, and this is the trajectory that we see for Covalent. Covalent is trading at around 230 million FDV market cap. We've placed that in the yellow dot here of where it is in comparison. So currently we see it at the valuations that VC normally gets into projects. And Covalent is, for our view, the Graph 2.0. It's omni-chain. It's on over 200 chains. The revenues are approximately 5x of the Graph, and so it is highly undervalued. It's approximately 14% trading compared to the Graph today. Covalent is the largest indexer in Web3 with, like I said, over 200 chains indexed, and it provides a massive amount of data availability, structured data.
In many ways, Covalent is to Graph like Ethereum is to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is the idea, Ethereum is the execution. So what the Graph has played out in the last couple of years, Covalent has taken that idea, innovated, expanded, and brought it to a lot more people. It brings the promise of Web3 to realization. If the data is not available, then the whole point of blockchains, which is transparency, openness, access to opportunity, would be invalid. So this is why we are very excited about Covalent and continue to work very hard, relentlessly. I think our performance in the execution speaks for itself, with over 200 chains, with thousands of applications across all fields in Web3.
This space is very important for Web3. Many of the listeners, many of the audience might not know, but at one time, the internet was also separated. Web 1 was also separated, just like we have in Web3, different blockchains, some tribalism. We had, decades ago, CERN, Stanford, ARPANET, so forth, and it was all brought together. And that is absolutely an inevitability for Web3. It's happening today, and it's happening on Axelar in the most secure way. 25% of all web activity will be cross-chain. And as I said, Axelar is a platform that everybody is using, from TradFi, JP Morgan, to DGen, Uniswap, and so many other applications. And the way that RockTree views Axelar is to compare it to some of the top layer ones in terms of valuation, because projects are building on Axelar and everybody is using it just like a layer one.
Once we launched Algorand, it was very clear to us that each new blockchain that launches is like an island. It cannot connect to other blockchains, and we're really fragmenting the ecosystem. Omer made a great analogy with the internet. The same way that if you're on your personal computer, you don't have access to the internet, you're pretty much unable to do most of the things you do in your daily life. And every time you interact with your computer in your day-to-day life, you use the internet. Axelar does the same thing for blockchains. It is the internet of blockchains. And in the future, every time a user interacts with the blockchain, we'll also be issuing transactions on Axelar to communicate across different chains, across different applications. The biggest blue chip DeFi applications like Uniswap, Lido, DYDX, Frax, they all recently integrated Axelar, and virtually every vertical, including gaming. Today we announced an integration with Immutable, which is the leading gaming platform in the blockchain space. I'd say more than 50% of the existing applications across ecosystems have some integration with Axelar today, and we are exploring deeper integrations. And definitely, there's dozens of native applications as well that are launching natively cross-chain, and we live on multiple different blockchains. It's in the hundreds. It's hard to specify a number, like there's so many of them, and every day there's more. I was literally just scrolling through our block explorer earlier, and there were like 3 or 4 new tokens that were deploying cross-chain with Axelar. It's permissionless. We don't even know what they are. And instead of being limited to a single ecosystem, now they're available on more than 10 blockchains. And they can do that without our permission.
When we invested into Pocket, the way we looked at it is a decentralized version of Alchemy. Alchemy is the centralized RPC provider. And of course, our ethos is decentralization. So we want the industry to move in that direction. Alchemy is private. Pocket is a public token. The Alchemy private valuation is 10.2 billion. And current FDV for Pocket is around 450 million, fully diluted as of recently. And it's gone up significantly recently, but we see a lot of upside.
I think the best way to think about Pocket Network is that it's a decentralized physical infrastructure network that connects people, applications, and businesses to the blockchain. And it does this via a method known as remote procedure call, or RPC. And this is how anyone reads the state of a blockchain, and that can be any blockchain that Pocket currently supports, which are there roughly just over 50. And secondly, this is also how you send transactions to a blockchain. And this is all enabled by connecting you to blockchain nodes. So as you can imagine, this is used by centralized exchanges to Web3 wallets, DeFi apps, and really everyone who wants to connect to a blockchain in that way. First of all, on our tokenomics, people probably knew Pocket from the last cycle, but its inflation is now massively reduced. It's now below 5%, on track to, or projected to, become deflationary towards the end of next year. And every relay or request that goes through Pocket Network is now paid for. Secondly, the growth playbook for Pocket has changed dramatically as well. So while there's been a huge number of new RPC providers that have come into the market, Pocket actually now has opened up its infrastructure to serve all of these RPC providers. And this is super interesting because Pocket is leaning into its deep-in architecture and benefits to provide these other RPC providers cost benefits, hyperscaler benefits to new data services, new additional throughput, as well as providing some of its additional uptime benefits as well. And yeah, I guess the last piece to all of this in terms of the changes, I think our ambition has got a lot bigger as well. We've been optimizing and building the technology and the community and the processes, and the same architecture that Pocket's using for RPC can actually now be used to support other data services. And this is actually because Pocket doesn't actually host the infrastructure, the blockchain nodes itself. It coordinates and incentivizes them. And this can also be used for blockchain adjacent services, as well as non-blockchain sources such as AI LLMs, which a few members of our community and businesses are starting to experiment with as well.
So one of the key things about Covalent is we've gone out there and indexed, scraped, normalized, structured all of this data. And today our count stands to about 200 chains. So we've taken all this data and really, as you put it, a reservoir of structured data. So not just raw data, but data that is ready to be consumed. And this is not just data for data's purpose, right? It's actually meant for use cases. And over the last couple of years, we've onboarded thousands of applications that are relying on this data. So some of it is like enterprise use cases, some of it like Web3 kind of use cases, but it's a very horizontal platform. So you have wallets and so on that are building on this reservoir of data. One of the advantages of a horizontal, all-you-can-eat kind of like structured data is that you can train LLMs and these AI models using the structured data. And it's not just AI for the AI's sake. It could be AI for DeFi, AI for NFTs, AI for gaming, AI for all the different kind of use cases. And we're starting to see dozens of projects relying on Covalent for this AI structured data, which is super exciting, very, very, very hot space. One of the most exciting things I'm looking forward to this year is the fee switch. So all of the customer demand that is generated from the hundreds and hundreds of applications that pay fees to use Covalent is going as on-chain revenue and revenue buyback in terms of CQT. So every dollar that comes into the ecosystem from these customers like Rainbow and Wormhole and Fidelity and Paraswap and hundreds of others goes into buyback, and you should be able to see this in Uniswap. One of the unique points that Covalent has is that we support a lot of the emerging ecosystems get out to market. So an example is Scroll, which is very popular ZK EVM, or Tyco, which is another ZK EVM, or Moomin Labs, which is like a new kind of like machine on Ethereum, cross finance. Anyways, dozens of these chains that are coming to market. So we help them with test nets before even going to mainnet. So what we're looking to partner with this is still in the process, is get access to their essentially private tokens to the true believers of CQT. It's a great way to bootstrap the Scroll and the Tyco and the Movement communities by essentially token marriage with the CQT token holders.
First, let me focus on the security, which is the first question that people ask me when I present Axelar to them, and is the reason why all those applications are built in with Axelar versus many of the competitors. As a lot of you are aware of, over the past 2 years in the crypto space, the biggest hacks were on cross-chain technology and in particular bridges. Bridges are centralized structures, typically some centralized entity or the founder. If you all remember the recent incident with the multi-chain situation where a lot of funds were lost, typically some centralized entity holds all the funds in a centralized wallet. The user sends the funds to this entity. The entity gives you the funds on the other side, and it's a black hole. You don't know what happens. And virtually every bridge that was around 2 years ago that took this approach has been hacked today. So with Axelar, we took a very different approach. We do solve the bridging problem, but we are not a bridge. So what is Axelar, and why is it so much better than the previous solutions? Axelar, it's itself based on blockchain technology. It is a blockchain that connects blockchains. When you connect different chains with the Axelar technology, instead of depending on a centralized intermediary, you depend on a fully decentralized validator set of 75 validators. On top of Axelar's technology, there's multiple teams like Squid, Kashmir Labs, Interswap that are all building bridges. Because remember, Axelar is a cross-chain platform. You can build all kinds of cross-chain applications on top, but itself is not a bridge. It's just a secure, decentralized infrastructure that can power bridges. It is the only fully open source solution, which is a critical piece for security in the blockchain space. It utilizes hub and spoke architecture, meaning when you connect a new chain to the Axelar blockchain, it gets access to the whole ecosystem of blockchains. This makes it more secure than point-to-point connections, which virtually every competing solution utilizes, but it also makes it much more scalable. Because when you connect a new chain, you have to do one connection versus if you have 50 chains with a competitor, you will have to do 50 different connections. So Axelar has a massive advantage in terms of how much it can scale and adopt to a multi-chain world. Third, Axelar is the only decentralized solution in the space. It has an order of magnitude more validators than any other cross-chain solutions, and definitely more validators than all the other cross-chain solutions combined. Is the largest validator set in the space. Axelar solves the bridging problem, but it's not a bridge. It's a programmable interoperability layer, meaning that every single application in the space can also deploy part of its code base on the Axelar blockchain and access users from everywhere. And similar to the internet, where a big chunk of all computer transactions are through the internet, we expect at least 25% of all transactions to be cross-chain and submit a message on the Axelar blockchain itself. We have the biggest blue chip applications, including Lido, Uniswap, DYDX. Enterprise players like JP Morgan and Microsoft have been utilizing the technology. All of the biggest wallets, all of the biggest real-world asset providers, they all have integrated part of their code base on Axelar to make their technology available to all the users. That's why Axelar has the potential to be a much more valuable piece of infrastructure in the space than any single layer 1 or layer 2 that is live today.
First is, I think people are really starting to realize the power and potential value of decentralized physical infrastructure networks and DPINs in terms of the cost and scale benefits they can provide, and ultimately the value they can drive in the real world in a way that simply isn't possible without using a blockchain. And Pocket was one of the early leaders in DeepIn, the first decentralized RPC, launching in the summer of 2020, and close to 700 billion requests since then for over 50 different chains. And the beauty of this is because Pocket doesn't actually run the underlying infrastructure itself, it can very easily and quickly basically spin up the incentives to coordinate access to these new data services, which will hopefully help with the massive proliferation of new chains and rollups. But of course, the blockchain adjacent services and even the really exciting new non-blockchain potential data services such as AI LLMs. The two key takeaways there are every request is paid. And as we onboard more of these gateways, these API businesses, they bring more demand. They're able to serve new customer types. So that keeps that flywheel turning of more and more demand for the network, which will mean more and more Pocket being burned. And with more requests, we expect to see more nodes being staked for these different types of data services. And I guess, of course, as I said, inflation has been massively reduced and is expected to continue reducing, with that burn starting to amplify those effects and put Pocket on a path to becoming deflationary. Really, this is related to the major protocol upgrade we're projected to launch hopefully in Q2 of this year. And this is known as the Shannon upgrade after Claude Shannon, the father of information theory. And so the Shannon upgrade will make it permissionless for anyone to build a gateway on top of Pocket Network, which will obviously massively help with scale.
Here that we will scale to 1,000 chains in the coming 12 months or so, which means we're going to leave no data unindexed, no data inaccessible, and all of this is going to power the data economy of the future. So far in 2023, we have powered and enriched 260 million unique wallets.
It's going to be more than 1,000 chains. And to make those chains usable, we need technologies like Covalent, like Axelar, to allow users to seamlessly interact with the technology. This space has existed for 15 years, and the infrastructure just hasn't been ready. But right now, we are at a place where with products like Covalent and Axelar, we can allow people who launch on all these different chains to abstract away the complexity of their applications so that every single person in the world will be able to interact with the technology as easy as it is to go on a website today and use the internet.
I really do believe that the winner and winners of cross-chain are going to be bigger than even the single chain environment. So that's my future prediction for Axelar, that you take the biggest layer one today, and tomorrow the winner of cross-chain, and I believe it's going to be Axelar, is going to be even bigger. So we're going to see who can say Happy Chinese New Year in Mandarin the best. Ganesh, you backpacked through China. Let's hear you first.
Long Nian Dai Qi.
So Georgios.
Long Nian Daji.
Long Nian Daji. We're going to go to Dermot.
Long Nian Daji.
Wow. Okay. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. You can check out on our socials, RockTree at RockTree Capital News on Telegram, at RockTree Capital on Twitter, and also please look, and also our WeChat socials as well. And please look at the socials for each of these star projects that are going to crush it in 2024 and 2025. POKT, POKT, Axelar, AXL, Covalent, CQT,